Bobby Black, a young detective, often finds himself in situations where he must quickly rush out on duty. This time he found himself in a train carriage where 5 people had gathered. The detective took note of specific items that passengers had. An elderly woman had a sparkling, expensive hairpin. The man opposite him, sitting by the window, had a golden cigarette case on his knees. A young woman sat in dark sunglasses, and a young man had watches with phosphorescent hands on his wrist. After passengers settled in, a lively conversation ensued. Suddenly, the carriage plunged into complete darkness as it passed through a tunnel. The train's lighting mysteriously turned off. Probably sets a romantic atmosphere for lovers, thought Bobby. Silence fell in the compartment as everyone waited for the end of the tunnel. When the light flashed brightly outside the windows again, the elderly woman sitting next to the window screamed,
"My hairpin! Someone stole it while we were passing through the tunnel."
"Who could be the thief?" Passengers exchanged suspicious glances. How did Bobby manage to crack this puzzle? Detective Bobby Black noticed that only something on the wrist of the young man opposite him was glowing in the darkness. It turned out to be his watch, which betrayed him in the act of theft. This was confirmed when he confessed to his guilt. Once, Bobby Black was strolling down the street when he stumbled upon the lifeless body of a woman sprawled on the ground. The detective meticulously examined the belongings of the deceased, retrieved her phone from her bag, and upon finding the husband's number in the contacts, placed a call. Black conveyed, "Your wife is dead. Come here urgently." Shortly after, the husband arrived and, upon sighting his wife's body, exclaimed, "Darling, what happened to you?" Subsequently, the police arrived and, addressing the officers, Bobby Black pointed at the deceased's husband, declaring, "The killer stands before you, arrest him." Why did the detective conclude that the deceased's husband was her murderer? Bobby Black didn't mention the address of the murder scene during the phone call. The personnel at the Majestic Hotel were in a state of agitation as Monsieur Henri Dubois, a wealthy French entrepreneur and wine producer, was found murdered in room 13. Detective Bobby Black arrived at the hotel at the manager's request and proceeded to the scene. The police had already removed the body. 4 witnesses were in close proximity to room 13 just before the murder. Tommy, the waiter, was about to deliver breakfast to Monsieur Dubois when he heard voices of distress from the room. Before he could knock, the door swung open, striking him on the head. He developed a lump from the blow, likely to remain for some time. A tall man emerged from the room and headed for the elevator. The chambermaid identified the gentleman as Mr. Archer, a resident on the 20th floor, who was promptly summoned. Both Mr. Archer and the lift attendant corroborated Tommy's statement. However, Mr. Archer denied any involvement in the altercation. Detective Black pondered briefly, then arrested the waiter. Why did Detective Black conclude that the waiter was guilty? The door to room 13 couldn't have struck Tommy on the head, as it opens inward. Tommy stated he was standing outside the room in the hallway. Thus, Detective Black deduced the crime and arrested the waiter.